I'd really like to ask is, what do you miss most about match days at the Boleyn?
For me, the close proximity noise, but I am an absolute total fan of the London Stadium. So there's lots I don't miss, like having to know I need to go to the toilet half an hour before I need to go, because I was going to have to queue for at least 30, if not 40 minutes. I don't miss that at all. I miss the Boleyn under lights, I think, is the biggest thing I miss. And the smell, which was a very unique smell, not necessarily unpleasant, but it was a unique smell that I've only ever smelt at the Boleyn ground.
Right. I think for me, it would be going back to the early days when I started going to games at the Boleyn, which would have been the early 1960s. I used to go into the old chicken run with the corrugated iron roof. And I always remember the atmosphere and the sort of camaraderie. There were a lot of guys in there that worked in the docks and the local factories. Although I didn't understand a lot of it, there was the banter was absolutely incredible. And of course, the Cockney sense of humour. I think I agree with Sue about the matches under lights. There were some really memorable games when we were playing cup ties, or we were playing semi-finals of playoff games when we were looking to get promoted in the bad old days. Particularly games against West Brom, and we had some very good games in a rivalry between us and Ipswich.
Yeah.
Or something going wrong on the district line. That was mine.
Yeah.
If you're going to a midweek game and you're trying to get out of the city from work or something, if anything went wrong on the district line, you're like, how much of the game am I going to miss now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think you're right about the night games and playing under the lights. But then actually at the London Stadium, you can also get some good games at night there as well, can't you? You can get a real good atmosphere going.
Yeah, I think we all accepted that once we made the move, it was going to take a couple of years for that atmosphere to start developing and people getting used to being in a different place. It's like moving home, you know?
Yeah.
I think if we'd have had a successful team when we first moved, the atmosphere would have built and it would have been maintained for quite a long time. But because we went and we've never really had a team that everybody can get behind, we've had people attached to the club who seem to think that in the first season we should have been winning the league, etc., causing a lot of unrest. That the atmosphere has never really had a chance to ingrain itself in the supporters, so that the new supporters just think that that's what is. I think a lot of them think that you go over there to moan and they're not getting behind the team. You see those games when we had, we've beaten Man U, we've had a really, really good game. The atmosphere is fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's not happened often enough. And perhaps now it will. And that atmosphere will become embedded and it will just be a fantastically intimidating stadium.
Yeah.
That's some great perspective, and I've never heard it or thought of it like that before, the difference in atmosphere.
And I think you're right, Sue, especially like with the new ground, that there are people that just go there to vent. Just moan. Even when we're playing well, they're just waiting for it's quiet the whole way through, and they're just waiting for that moment where there's a foul, basically, for them to be able to have a moan.
No, I mean, one of the other caps I wear is that I'm the over 65s rep on the supporters board, and there's been a lot of hard work going on in the last year. The board's been completely reconstituted. Couple of new groups have been added, and interestingly enough, the two groups that have been added, and it was at the instigation of the club, are two groups that have so far been the biggest critics of the club. But the club wanted to bring them on board into the supporters board format.
Transparency, right, Don?
Yeah,
Yes,
so they're making an
absolutely.
effort.
Yeah.
Says a lot for our club, really, though, doesn't it? You
It
do feel
does.
kind of proud when you see things like that. You know?
I still find it unbelievable that there are people who are still saying, why don't we go back to the Boleyn when there's 5 blocks of flats on it?
Yeah.
You know,
It could just happen.
I can understand them saying, I wish we were still at the Boleyn, because some
Yeah.
people will never accept the London Stadium. But to say we ought to go back, you know, you just think, grow up, it can't happen.
Yeah.
You have to adapt to where we are and get on with it.
Yeah. We had to evolve to be contenders in the Premier League, let alone anything else. Because you know, with 30, and what was it? God, it was so long. At 34,000, was it?
34,
34,000 to 60,000. I mean,
I think one of the basic things that people choose to forget, and Sue's comment about the toilets, you know, if you looked around, that stadium had started deteriorating pretty badly, and the infrastructure would have needed a lot of money to bring it up to a reasonable standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was no hot water anywhere in the London Stadium for you to wash your hands unless you were in the director's box.
Can you change that to the Boleyn Stadium, Sue, rather than London?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. The Boleyn ground. Sorry, none at all. Because I wrote to Karen Brady about it when we had the bird flu and we all had to wash our hands a bit like today, and it was freezing and there was only cold water, and they'd only just taken over, and she actually wrote back and said she couldn't believe it, that there was no hot water anywhere except in the director's toilets.
It was ice cold, wasn't it?
Ice cold.
Yeah.
I've another question which might change the tone. Like, we're moving away into more kind of players, more football stuff. So just who was your favorite player then? So like a former player, and who's your favorite player now?
You can't really boil it down to one player. Bobby Moore is an obvious first choice. But I used to like players, because my mind's now gone completely blank. Clyde Best was somebody that I always liked. And people like Billy Bonds, you know, over the years we've had some good defenders, and obviously not to the dizzy heights of their skill level, but when I used to play, I played in defence. So it was those players that I used to watch.
Mine was Billy Bonds is most probably my all-time favourite, because he epitomises everything I was told when I was grown up. You make the most of what you've got and you give it 100%, and you never ever back off. You never, you know, you just give everything, and that to me was Billy Bonds wrapped up. But I loved players like Graham Paddon, who just sort of quietly floated around and did some fantastic stuff, but all very low key, never got a lot of credit for it. You know, you just noticed when he wasn't there. I like Devonshire, Stevie Potts, you know, those, Alvin Martin, again, those are all those hard-working sloggers, I suppose, who just got on with the job.
Like Snodgrass.
Yes, absolutely. Another one who gives you everything he's got, and sometimes it's not enough. You know, people are better than you and you just have to accept, but he didn't let his head drop. He just carried on and tried to beat him the next time, or tried to do something different. So that sort of player.
The ones that put in the shift, right? They're always the ones that we remember.
Yeah. You're not there as a prima donna, you know.
I was going to say, they're the sort of players that the fans take to and can relate to, because they are putting in a shift, and you can see whatever their limitations are as a player, they're giving it 100%.
We never got
how?
to now.
Now,
The current
I would
players.
say
Oh, sorry.
somebody like Antonio. I like him, although he's injury prone, but I like him because, again, he puts a shift in. I love the fact that he's changed from being a winger to the centre forward as needs must, and has possibly found where he should have been playing for years.
Yes.
Totally by accident, possibly. I mean, obviously you love Declan, but see, I love Mark Noble. I've got his shirt up here because, again, he's one of those hard-working people who wears his heart on his sleeve, and he is Mr. West Ham, and that, again, is just what I like in a player.
So do you think we're ever going to see another player like Mark Noble that just stays with the club for his whole career?
You'd like to think that Pat Rice would fill that role, but I've got
You
great
mean Declan?
Declan Rice.
Pat might be a bit slow now.
But we're with Declan. I've got grave misgivings of what might happen come the summer. Are we going to be able to hold on to it? As far as current day players are concerned, and again, I wouldn't just pick one player. I mean, I like watching Ogbonna.
Yeah.
Declan Rice, Jared Bowen, Fornals I like. And I think Seaforth has been an incredible buy for us. He's slotted into the team as if he'd been there all his life. Again, his work rate is good. And I think he's helped to cement the defence as well.
Yeah.
I like Souček because he reminds me of Martin Peters, running in late to get goals, and that's what Martin Peters used to just drift in and score, and that's what Souček does as well. So I like him. I think those two. Perhaps we ought to buy some more from Slavia Prague.
Yeah, I'd be sending a scout out there to watch every training session. What, like bargains? Absolute bargains.
A bargain, absolute bargain. I mean, what would Souček go for?
Yeah.
And look at Soufal as well. I mean, literally hit the ground running. He's amazing.
And Ryan Fredericks hasn't got a look in, although he's faster, he's younger, he can. I know, but you can't drop him because of what he does.
He's barely put a foot wrong since he started.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
I couldn't think of a mistake he's made, and because like all the games are televised now, I feel like I've seen every minute. You know, usually you'll miss things here or there. You'll miss things with him, but I can't get over how good Soufal has been.
Yeah.
But I think this sort of telepathic understanding that Rice and Soufal have got is incredible.
Souček.
You know, one goes forward, one drops back. And you can't see them making signals or anything to one another. It's just an instinctive thing. And I mean, if we can keep Declan next season, you know, the chances of us being able to carry on and build on what they've achieved this season augurs really well for next season.
So do you think if we were able to keep a spot and like build up to a spot in Europe, do you think it's better odds that Declan will stay?
Well, it'll help.
Think...
It'll certainly help.
Yeah.
And I think it depends what is being offered by other clubs and how much he is a young man who is very focused on developing himself as a footballer, or he's like so many of them who are more interested in making sure that his bank balance is as huge as it can possibly be. Now, he doesn't display those traits at all.
No.
But that doesn't mean to say he hasn't got them. He's just very good at hiding them. And
so, how come we're not paying him right now? He's only on about 60,000 a week. Like, how come we're not paying him now?
I don't know how he gets by. I don't know how he scrapes by with that.
No, that must be awful.
But when you consider that Lanzini's like on 125, that's crazy to see. I'd say we need to just build a team, man, and keep him for another 2 years at least. So just sign a check just whatever he wants. Give the boy whatever he wants.
Yeah.
Well,
My big concern with Declan Rice is I don't know how many of you remember Joe Cole. Really good prospect, transferred to Chelsea, completely destroyed his career.
Yeah.
They wanted to play him out of position. He hardly got a start for months on end. Ended up going to Aston Villa and never fulfilled the potential that he had when he was with us. And there's a lot to be said for being a big fish in a small pond.
Yeah.
I feel with Declan Rice, I don't think he's like after the money. I think he is after development. So I think if the opportunities are here from develop, and he thinks it's the best for his career, and I think he'll do it rather than kind of chasing the money. Like one thing that I really like about him is he you see the development like each season. Like he didn't push forward, and when he started, he actually didn't play many long passes at all. It was short passes. But the next season, he brings into his game, but really carefully in a way that he didn't try and hit and miss so many long passes. You know, he waited until he was positive that he wasn't going to lose the ball, and then he brings it into his game. And now he started pushing on, and his shots and he's just been a whisker away in the last few games that you kind of think he's bringing in that long shot, those runs into the box, which Souček has allowed him to do. So I kind of feel like if those opportunities to develop his game in the way that he's developed it, which is like super carefully, then maybe that's your chance. But if he left, I wouldn't, I'd still really, I'd always want him to do well. You know, if he did leave, I would always kind of support him.
You could understand why he would want to leave, to play against the best players in the world in European competition. I could understand that. I'm always an optimistic person, and I can't understand why he would want to join Chelsea when he told us at one of our meetings that they dismissed him, having been there for 4 or 5 years with a telephone call. They just phoned him up and said, don't bother coming to training anymore.
Yeah, I think
we don't want you, and I can't. Why would you go back?
Yeah, exactly.
I think the other thing with Declan Rice is that any old irons have to declare an interest. A few years ago, we were running a 5-week program in East Ham Library, and Declan was one of the youth players that was brought along to meet older fans and interact with them. We've followed him ever since.
With Danny Kemp.
Wow.
To the Working Men's Club.
Wow.
Yeah. He was so shy. They were so scared. They were 17, I think, 18 years old.
Seeing what Noble is, Mr. West Ham, he could be a legend for the rest of his life.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, at the beginning of this season, when people were talking about Declan leaving, and I said then that the best way to keep him was to make Noble club captain and make Declan team captain. And that kind of seems to be what's happening at the moment. With Mark Noble, there's sort of parallels with Scott Parker, because he was a great servant of the club, and we could all see that his poor old legs just didn't have it anymore. And it's the same sort of scenario with Mark Noble now.
He never really had the legs, though, let's be honest.
No, he never
was
had
a youngster.
No, it was all that grit and determination, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Hence the number of bookings, because he was always just a little bit late. Love him.
So are you accepting new members? And if so, how do they get in touch?
No, at the moment, purely because we'll accept people onto a waiting list at the moment, because we don't know what the future holds, what facilities, because we used to meet at the Denmark Arms, and we don't know whether that will reopen, where we will be, what its capacity will be. There's no point in having 200 members if you can only accommodate 40.
Right.
So at the moment, if people wish to join, they can enter a waiting list, and they contact our membership secretary, who's Maureen Hankin, and she will put them on the waiting list. But anybody can join our Facebook page if they're over 60. They just apply, and the administration, they don't vet them, but they will then put them onto the group. So they're very welcome to join the Any Old Irons Facebook page.
You're like bouncers at a nightclub, it's full, lads.
It's weird because when I joined 3-4 years ago, I walked in and there were most probably 15 members. And it's gradually just gone up and up and up and up, and more people have got to know about us. Yeah. And we're a victim of our own success at the moment, actually.
Yeah, but just putting a little bit of history on it, I was one of the people fortunate enough to be included in the very first 5-week program, which ran through March 2015. And following on from that, a group of us felt that it would be nice to keep meeting one another and keeping the contacts going. So through April to September 2015, we were meeting in the old East Ham Working Men's Club just behind the ground. Because people had, people were going on holiday and different appointments and all the things that older people get up to. Sometimes there were only 4 or 5 of us there, and it's now grown to, we've got over 100 members. So, yeah.
But it's great for the community, right? Especially now, though. I mean, how are you all keeping in contact? Because it's got to be really difficult for you now.
Well, right at the beginning of the first lockdown, we started, for want of a better phrase, a phone a friend program. So that each person on the committee would ring 4, 5 or 6 people, have a chat with them, to keep in touch with them. The newsletter, which was originally a monthly thing, we started doing it weekly. We now do it fortnightly. So that
we don't. We do it monthly now, and it was fortnightly.
I stand corrected. Yeah, that circulated to every member. Our Facebook page, which has taken off incredibly, there is so much traffic on there, it's difficult to keep up with it sometimes. Yeah. But I think for me, one of the main things, the Any Old Irons group, there are so many great personalities and characters, people with such incredible memories, who can tell you the lineup of any particular team, any particular game in the 1950s, who played, who scored, and people with countless memories and anecdotes to keep everybody entertained.
The meetings are very noisy.
Yeah, particularly when I'm trying to run a quiz.
And people are better at talking than listening, I think.
Well, I was about to say, if everybody can kind of name every lineup going back to the 50s, that'd be great for quiz nights.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those. I can't remember whether we won last year, let alone 20 years ago,
Another highlight, particularly for me, is the amount of support that we've got, not only from the club, but from ex-players. Yeah. Any number of ex-players, particularly the guys that played in the 1980 FA Cup winning team, a lot of them have done calls to our members.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
We recently had a really good Zoom Q&A with David Cross, who was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, wow. He phoned me up as well during the lockdown.
Yeah. People like Tony Cotty, Alvin Martin.
Martin Allen.
Yeah, Martin Allen was very good.
Yeah.
Very funny, Martin Allen.
Yeah. And of course, not forgetting that we run a satellite group, our satellite group down at Hadley in Essex. And we've had different guest speakers down there as well. So there's a lot of advantages to growing older because you get a lot of perks.
Yeah.
Well, not long, and I can join you. Not that long.
Exactly.
You'll be very welcome.
Joe and I were joking about this a few days ago.
I know, yeah.
We wanted to join you soon.
If I could ask one last question, it is, what does being an ally mean to you?
Being
an ally to the LGBT plus community.
Oh, right. Well, I don't think of it like that at all. I think of it just that there's a bunch of people who want to get together and have a chat. You're no different to, I don't get it that you need allies. You shouldn't need allies. You should have friends. You should have people who just want to be with you because of the personality you are.
Yeah.
So I would hate to be described as an ally. An advocate might be a better word, because that means that you're also willing to say, accept and everything else, but just judge people for what they are, not for anything else. You're telling me a straight murderer, a straight murderer, is better. I mean, I'm sorry, no.
I love you, Sue.
You're very welcome.
I think just on a personal level, when I first got involved about 3 years ago with what was then called the Official Supporters Board, I had lots of conversations with Jim Dolan.
Yeah.
Never occurred, until I saw his name against the Pride of Irons logo. Never even occurred to me, as long as he wasn't a Millwall supporter, I didn't mind.
Some Millwall supporters are very nice people.
I've never met one, to be honest, Sue.
Oh,
No.
In the different dealings that I've had over the years, for my sins, I've been a guest speaker at a couple. The original programme for Any Old Irons was rolled out at Brentford, QPR and Reading. And I was asked to be a guest speaker at their launch events. And with some of those dealings, I met a guy who is actually a Nottingham Forest supporter, but he lives in Leicester. And it was probably about 6 months before he told me that he was gay. And I said, well, you don't support Spurs, you don't support Millwall. I don't, it just makes life different.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Yeah.
Has the experiences that you have at football, have they changed a lot? Are they improving, is it quite new that you get this support from the clubs as well?
It's a really good question. Now, I've never experienced or heard any homophobic chanting or anything at the club or any football match, but I know others that have. And for various reasons, that's meant that people haven't wanted to go to football because of that they just haven't felt welcome. And it's only sort of through Pride of Irons that we get to talk to supporters that otherwise wouldn't want to come to football at all. But because we exist, they know they can either come along with one of us, or if there's any problems, they can talk to us. And I remember we had a game a few years ago. It was just before we finished at the Boleyn, Man United in the Cup, evening game. And we were lucky, the club they didn't give us, they sold us a block of 20 tickets for that game. And so we put it out to our members, any members who wanted to get a ticket. And of course, all of us well, most of us had season tickets, so we weren't interested in the tickets. So it actually got a load of new faces, members of Pride of Irons, who we hadn't seen before, came along. And the common thing was, they wouldn't have come if it weren't for Pride of Irons being together and getting the tickets in that case. Yeah. And that, I think, was one of our biggest achievements, was to sort of get people that otherwise, like they support West Ham, like you and me, but they just wouldn't have come to the game otherwise. So we do see some of that. And the other piece as well is that there's lots of football clubs have now got similar fan groups of various sizes. And so again, we sometimes do sort of pre-match or post-match socials. The chair of the Arsenal group, the Gay Gooners, and they're probably the biggest fan group in the country. He and I sort of known each other for years, and whenever West Ham are playing Arsenal, we'll always sort of get together before or after a game with them and find a pub near the ground that we can kind of bring them to as well. So yeah, the social side is really good as well with other groups.
Yeah, just from my point of view, I think there's been a bit of a shift. And I haven't been involved for a huge amount of time. Like my first season ticket was the first season at the London Stadium. So that's when I started coming regularly to Pride of Irons events. I feel like the group kind of started out you're trying to tackle homophobia in football, but as time goes on and the voices that would be kind of chanting either racist things or homophobia become really in the minority, and it's kind of self-policed by just all the fans. I think this group turns more into like a kind of bit more of a kind of proactive, positive group where it's about meeting up. It's about, we had a football game against the Gay Gooners just in the pitch beside the stadium as well. So it's a little bit less from the, we have to be here to kind of tackle some of the negativity to, hey, we're just like a gang, we're a supporters group, and we can actually do lots of fun stuff. And oh, by the way, we're gay. And that was the hook that kind of got us all together. But now it's just like, some of us like playing football, some of us like meeting up in the pub before games, some of us like going to different events, and that's kind of what it's evolved into for me anyway.
Yeah. Sexuality has nothing to do with it. It's not talked about. It's just a group of friends.
No, so that is what always amazes me. I didn't, because it was only when I visited Ireland, sorry, Michelle, that the first person I met said, "Are you Catholic or Protestant?" And it was a question I'd never been asked in my life because it had never been anything that was important. And I can't believe that people would actually sort of say, you're gay. I don't. But unfortunately, I suppose there were people, misguided people everywhere.
There are a lot of haters. That's why we're here, unfortunately. And
but they hate everything.
That's right. Yeah. And it's
mostly
just
themselves.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I wish that this group didn't exist. Truly, just didn't exist because we didn't need it. But unfortunately, we do. It's been great for us because we've actually made some real friends from it, as well as I'm sure Pride of Irons do. Pride of Irons, so any old Irons do. So it's merging into one already. Me and Al already there.
We nearly changed our name there to Pride of Any Old Irons.
Do we have predictions for today?
3-1.
3-1.
And I'm hopeless.
Okay.
Yeah, I think 3-1 at least. I'd like to see 3-0, but then I'm greedy. So.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And what about you?
I'm going to go 3. Oh, sorry, Brandy. Go on, you go first.
I was going to say 2-0.
I'm going to go 3-0 because Fab's in goal. I don't think we're going to get one past us.
No, I think I'll go with Brandy. 2-0 is mine.
Yeah, I think I'm 2-0 as well. I think it could be tight. I nearly go 1-0. Like these games can be.
Yes, I know.
Tricky. Yeah. I never go into these games being like, well, I'm going to watch West Ham win a game now. I'm like, oh no. So I think
this is a typical West Ham banana skin.
Faye, quickly, which was
1-0.
1-0, cool. All right. Don, Sue, thanks ever so much. Been
Well,
brilliant.
thank you. It's
so
been really
much.
interesting.
Yeah,
Good
thank
to see
you.
you both.
Yeah, I think
Thank you.
the one very last thing, Joe, in your email, you made a mention about our voices aren't heard enough. I think some people would say our voices are heard too much.
But look, we'll see
Yeah.
you later. Enjoy the
Yeah,
match.
you
Fingers
take
crossed
care.
it's a good one.
Thanks,
See you
Sue.
later.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.